Let's start with today's grim economic numbers. 651,000 jobs were lost last month. In January, we lost 655,000 jobs. And back in December, we lost 681,000 jobs. All told, a total of 4.4 million jobs have been slashed since the recession began in December of 2007. Let's bring in Democratic Congressman Chris Van Hollen of Maryland, who's a member of the Ways and Means Committee and chairman of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. Congressman Van Hollen, thank you about that. Well, whose fault is all this? Let's bring in Republican David Dreier of California as well to keep it balanced. Gentlemen, I want to try to figure this out. We had a bad economic situation in October, in November going into the election, and now it's worse. Whose fault is it, and what do we do about it?
Well, look, I mean, the problems have been mounting. You had huge numbers of job losses in October, November, December, January, February. What's happened is we've obviously dug ourselves into a very deep economic ditch. What President Obama has done with the new Congress from day one says we're going to focus on turning it around. We passed an economic recovery plan. Unfortunately, not a single Republican in the House voted for it. We got 3 Republicans in the Senate. He's got a housing foreclosure plan, and they've got a plan to deal with the credit freeze in the markets. These things all have to click together. We got to have all cylinders clicking in order to turn it around. Remember, the first shovel-ready project just broke ground this past week, so it's going to take time. And the American people understand when you dig yourself this big a hole, it takes a little time to turn it around.
Congressman Dreier, why all the nervousness on the market? Why are the markets, until today, they stabilized a bit because of the perversity of Wall Street, whereby when you have a bad unemployment number like 8.1% today, the highest since the Reagan recession, and the market stabilized. But for weeks now, it's been going down. Why?
Well, Chris, we know that it is going down because we are seeing the market predict what is down the road 6 months, and it is clearly not optimistic. The American people are hurting. The other day I heard of a tragedy. A friend of mine told me of a suicide of a father who has 3 young children. We have homes being lost. We have businesses closing down. It is very, very painful. So you're saying, what is it that caused this? Well, I think that what we need to do is we need to focus on where we're going right now. And while it may sound esoteric, we need bold, robust, strong economic growth policies like John F. Kennedy put into place in 1961 and Ronald Reagan in 1981. Now, that may sound esoteric, but what it means is it means allowing families to keep their homes and being able to pay their bills, allowing kids to have college funds necessary, allowing businesses. That's the kind of policy, Chris, that we need to put into place.
But that's what you said back in 2001 that started this whole shebang.
And that did not start this shebang.
The economic policies that you're selling are what led us to where we are now. This is Bush politics you're talking about.
Wait a second, Chris. You just began this piece by talking about the fact that this number, the 0.5% increase in unemployment, is the largest in 25 years since the recession that began during the Reagan administration, at the end of the Carter administration, that Ronald Reagan inherited, with numbers even higher than those that we have today.
No, I was talking about 1983.
No, let me just tell you, the numbers were in many ways even higher than they are today. Here's the point. Let's look at the policies that were put into place that led to the bold economic growth that allowed people to plan for college, keep their homes, keep their businesses going, and create jobs. And that's the policy that we should be putting into place today. Plus reducing the size and scope and reach of government. With all of this spending, it has gone way overboard, but we do need infrastructure spending.
But tax cuts is what we did through President Bush's presidency.
Marginal rate
left
reduction.
us where we're at.
Marginal rate reduction, Chris, is what we need.
The American people are much smarter than that. They know what we need. Number one, we need investment. When the private sector is not investing, when the credit markets are frozen, you've got to invest. We invest in transportation. We provide some help for our states so they can keep investing in education and health care. And we provide tax cuts. 36% of the economic recovery bill we passed put more money directly into the pockets of Americans. It wasn't the wealthiest Americans, the very top, that benefited for the last 6 years. It was people who are actually going to go out and spend that money. You talk about keeping more people in their homes. We just passed a bill to do exactly that, to provide people relief when it comes to refund.
It perverts the market, Chris, by having bankruptcy judges set interest rates and what principal level, decreasing the value of homes across the country.
David, you know what it does? It allows a bankruptcy judge to take into consideration all the factors. If a bankruptcy judge thinks that somebody's overextended, they say foreclosure. But if they think that the bank is being unfair, they have the opportunity to intervene. In fact, by having the option for bankruptcy, what you allow is you give the homeowner finally a little bit of leverage in negotiation with the banks so they can cut a deal.
Bankruptcy to be filed. We don't want to undermine that ability, but I'll tell you what, we do not want to pervert the market. You know, we had Gordon Brown address us in a joint session of Congress day before yesterday, and he talked about the need to have a commitment to the free market, but it can't be value-free. And I acknowledge that there have been a lot of bad apples out there, and the American people are angry, and I'm angry, and we need to do everything that we can to crack down on that. But I believe that we have gone way overboard. Just read Stuart Taylor's piece in today's National Journal. He describes himself as an Obama-friendly, not quite supporter, but he's an Obama-friendly guy. He's a centrist. He describes himself as a centrist. And in it, he decries the kind of spending, the reach that we have, and all of these programs. You know, we lost private sector jobs. We shouldn't be focusing on creating more and more government jobs. What we need to do is we need to have these pro-growth policies that will create private sector jobs that will be long-term jobs. That's how we sustain the economy, and it's not a Republican issue. John F. Kennedy did it in 1961, and we need to do it today.
David, that's exactly what this plan did, is it invests in private sector jobs. What do you think transportation jobs are? What do you think the energy infrastructure market is?
I'm all for Chris, I'm all for infrastructure spending.
David, let me just say, these are private sector investments. We also did the tax cuts, including business incentives, so that people would be able to carry forward their losses so they get some income they could spend right now. You guys are just saying no to everything. You said no to this plan.
Chris, now let me just tell you, I'm going to stop you right there on that one. To say that we have said
no.
You know, David, you can say no. No matter how many times you say no, Chris, you know full well that we came forward having listened to small business owners, listened to workers, and we provided a very viable alternative modeled after exactly what I just said, which reduced marginal rates and would, in fact, 3% of this $800 billion package is focused.
The people watching this program right now are trying to figure out the following. How do they know whether what President Obama has tried is going to work? Congressman Van Hollen, how many months do we need now to find out whether this big stimulus bill that was passed and signed recently is going to work?
Well, it's already working.
How many months do we need to know?
It is already working in the sense that people who would have otherwise... It is, David. People who would have otherwise been out of work now have their jobs. The president just talked today about some of those jobs. In my state of Maryland, there were going to be lots of layoffs in the construction industry.
So the 8.1% unemployment rate is what?
Wait, let me put it this way. When you have a down escalator and you're trying to get up a down escalator, the fact of the matter is if you're standing still and doing nothing, you're going to go backwards fast. Now, we have no idea how fast this down escalator is coming, but to say that it's not working when people who are otherwise would be losing their jobs would be out of jobs.
Here's the president today. And then Congressman Dreier, you come in after this. Here's the president. Respond to him. Here's the president today in Columbus.
So for those who still doubt the wisdom of our recovery plan, I ask them to talk to the teachers who are still able to teach our children because we passed this plan. I ask them to talk to the nurses who are still able to care for our sick, and the firefighters and first responders who are still able to keep our communities safe. I ask them to come to Ohio and meet the 25 men and women who will soon be protecting the streets of Columbus because we passed this plan.
Well, the problem there, let me go, Congressman Dreier, here's the question. What do you buy about the escalator going down? And we're trying to run up the escalator. And if we don't do anything, we keep going down. But if we keep going up, running as fast as we can, we still don't know what we're up against. What do you think that Barack Obama inherited in terms of the economy? When he walked in the door, what was he facing? That's all I want to know from you now.
He inherited an economy that, because of a lot of problems, was in fact headed down. We all acknowledge that. We need to decide where it is that we're going. The president in Columbus was just talking about motherhood and apple pie. We all want to focus on teachers, obviously law enforcement and firefighters and nurses. Those are important priorities. But the fact is, and Chris has just been talking about infrastructure spending. 3% of this package in the stimulus bill was focused on infrastructure. What needs to be done is we need to make sure that we focus on private sector creation of jobs right now, and that is not being done. To argue that an $800 billion, really a $1.3 trillion bill with all of these other spending plans out there are going to create good private sector jobs is really absolutely beyond the pale.
If I could respond, I mean, first of all, I mentioned the private sector jobs. David says we all want to keep the teachers in the classroom. We all want to keep the nurses on the job. But the fact of the matter is, if we hadn't passed the economic recovery bill, states would be laying off people. In my state, the governor had planned to lay off 700 people. Firefighters, the teachers, they now can keep their jobs. They can keep spending money in the economy. So you try and avoid that downward spiral. Look, this thing was going down fast. I mean, when Barack Obama took office, you had a very fast down escalator. legislator. We are trying to make sure that we turn things around. No one knows how fast or deep this will go. But to do nothing, or to just say we're going to do what we used to do for 8 years that got us into the mess is not an answer.
Quit saying that we're going to do nothing. You know very well the last time that this model was followed was in the 1930s, and Henry Morgenthau, FDR's Treasury Secretary, in 1939 said, we've tried spending money, we've spent more money than we've ever spent before, and we have an unemployment rate today that is higher than the same rate as when we began, and an enormous debt to boot. That's the last time this model was tried, and I believe we as Americans, we are going to recover, but we're going to recover in spite of, not because of, this package that we're dealing with.
Let me just say, David, the American people said Roosevelt got it right. They said it in 4 straight elections. He must have been doing something right.
Let me just tell you that
he must have been doing something right by the American people, because his program had the support of the American people.
I will tell you.
Okay, we're going to have to stop it right here because this debate's going to continue.
Didn't say it about Ronald Reagan.
Okay, thank you very much, Congressman Chris Von Hollen, Democrat, and Congressman David Dreier, a Republican of California.